The grand hall of the Celestari Empire floated above a blue-white star. Its walls formed from living crystal that shimmered softly with shifting colors. Every surface reflected light in gentle waves, creating the feeling that the entire structure was alive and aware of those who entered. Representatives from many worlds gathered inside, their voices blending into a quiet hum of diplomacy. Some wore armor made from shining metals, others floated inside transparent spheres filled with their native atmosphere, and some existed as moving patterns of light. It was a place meant to show unity among different species, but beneath the calm surface there were always hidden tensions. Commander Elias Ward stood near the edge of the hall, observing silently. He wore a simple dark uniform without decoration. Compared to the elaborate clothing of many ambassadors, he looked almost plain. That was often how humans appeared to others, unremarkable at first glance. Elias did not mind. He had learned long ago that quiet observation revealed more than loud display. Humans were still relatively new to the wider galaxy. Only a few decades had passed since their first contact with alien civilizations. During that time, humanity had earned a reputation that was both respected and misunderstood. They were known for taking risks, solving problems in unconventional ways, and working through challenges others avoided. Some species admired this adaptability. Others believed it meant humans lacked refinement or wisdom. Elias had heard every opinion before. None of it changed how he carried himself. Across the hall, diplomats gathered around glowing tables displaying maps of star systems. Discussions focused on trade routes, border disputes, and the strange disturbances happening along the frontier regions. Several ships had disappeared near unstable stars, and no one understood why. The Celestari Empire hosted the summit, and their culture valued beauty and tradition above all else. Their royal family ruled not through force, but through influence and reputation. Every gesture, every word spoken in the hall was watched carefully. A sudden shift in the atmosphere signaled an important arrival. Music filled the air, soft and harmonic, as the young alien royal entered. Prince Kaler moved with graceful confidence, his silver-blue robes flowing behind him like liquid light. His species possessed naturally luminous skin that reflected faint colors depending on their emotions, and today he shone with bright confidence. He was young compared to many rulers, but already famous for his intelligence and sharp wit. Diplomats bowed as he passed. Elias inclined his head politely but did not move from his position. Kaler's gaze swept across the room, pausing briefly when it landed on the human. Something like curiosity flickered in his eyes, followed by a faint smile that did not quite reach warmth. The session began soon after. Representatives took their places as floating displays activated above the central platform. A Celestari advisor outlined the growing concern about disappearing ships and unpredictable energy fluctuations along a distant trade corridor. The anomaly did not match any known natural pattern. Some suggested increased patrols. Others recommended closing the route entirely until more data could be gathered. When it was humanity's turn to speak, Elias rose calmly. His voice was steady and clear. He described how human exploration vessels had encountered unusual gravitational distortions in nearby sectors. He suggested sending small, adaptable teams instead of large fleets, explaining that flexibility allowed faster learning in unknown situations. Several diplomats listened with interest. Prince Kaler leaned back in his seat, watching with a thoughtful expression. When Elias finished, Kaler raised a hand. "Commander Ward," the prince said smoothly, "your species often recommends unconventional methods." Elias nodded slightly. "We adapt based on available information." A few quiet murmurs moved through the audience. Kaler's smile widened. "Or perhaps based on instinct rather than refined analysis." Some of the nearby ambassadors chuckled lightly. Elias did not react. The prince continued, his tone playful but edged with something sharper. "Humans are known for rushing forward. It is admirable in a primitive way, but the Celestari prefer precision." More laughter, polite but noticeable. Elias met the prince's gaze calmly. "I understand," he said simply. The discussion moved on, but Kaler was not finished. As another delegate spoke about risk management, the prince added, "Perhaps humanity should lead the investigation. If they succeed, we all benefit. If they fail, we learn an important lesson about patience." The words sounded harmless on the surface, but the underlying meaning was clear. Elias heard the shift in tone across the hall. Some diplomats avoided looking at him. Others watched closely, curious about how he would respond. He felt no anger, only a quiet understanding. Humans had faced similar attitudes since joining the galactic community. They were often underestimated until results proved otherwise. He stood slowly. Many expected him to argue or defend his people. Instead, he gave a small, respectful bow. "Understood," he said. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. The hall grew quiet as he left. The doors closed behind him with a soft echo that seemed louder than it should have been. Prince Kaler watched, surprised by the lack of resistance. To him, silence looked like surrender. Outside the hall, Elias moved through a corridor lined with windows showing the endless stars beyond. His expression remained calm, but his thoughts worked quickly. He opened a secure communication channel. "Ward to command," he said quietly. "Prepare exploratory response teams, priority level 1. The reply came instantly. "Understood. Mission parameters." He paused for a moment, remembering the prince's words, then answered. "Unknown anomaly. Potential threat level high. We investigate immediately." Back inside the hall, the summit continued, though the earlier tension lingered. Some diplomats whispered among themselves. A few questioned whether the prince's remarks had crossed a line, but no one challenged him openly. Kaler believed he had simply spoken truth. To him, humans represented raw energy without elegance. Their history of rapid technological growth felt chaotic compared to the carefully balanced evolution of older civilizations. He did not hate them. He simply did not believe they were equal. Hours later, after the session ended, Kaler walked alone through a private garden within the structure. Floating plants glowed softly around him. He replayed the interaction in his mind. Why had the human left so quietly? Most species reacted strongly to public embarrassment. Yet Elias had shown no visible emotion. The prince dismissed the thought. Perhaps humans lacked pride. Meanwhile, far from the capital system, a small human fleet assembled. Their ships were practical rather than beautiful, designed with modular sections that could be replaced quickly. Engineers moved through corridors checking equipment while pilots reviewed navigation data. Human culture valued preparation. Elias arrived aboard the command vessel shortly after departing the summit. He greeted his crew with calm familiarity, listening to their updates and reviewing sensor reports. Early scans suggested the anomaly might not be natural. He felt a quiet certainty forming. If something dangerous existed out there, waiting for debate would only increase risk. The fleet entered hyperspace. Days passed as they traveled toward the frontier. During that time, Elias studied historical records of ancient civilizations that had vanished long ago. Humanity's archives were filled with stories of lost technologies and forgotten wars. He suspected they might be facing something similar. Back in the Solistari capital, reports from the frontier began to worsen. Another transport disappeared without sending a full distress signal. Sensor buoys detected sudden energy spikes followed by silence. The Galactic Council debated responses. Prince Kaler listened as advisors argued about strategy. Some suggested sending a massive fleet to overwhelm whatever threat existed. Others recommended caution. No one mentioned the human commander directly. Still, the prince found himself wondering where Elias had gone. He pushed the thought aside. Humanity would learn the importance of patience, he believed. Eventually, they would return with incomplete answers, and the council would proceed with a proper plan. Far away, the human fleet emerged near the edge of the affected system. Stars stretched across the darkness and faint distortions rippled through space like waves across water. Elias watched the sensors carefully. "Maintain low energy output," he ordered. "We observe before we engage." The ships spread out in irregular formations. Within minutes, they detected the source. A massive structure drifted through space, ancient and silent, surrounded by fragments of destroyed vessels. Its surface moved slowly, shifting shape as if alive. Elias felt a chill despite years of experience. This was not simply an anomaly, it was something built. He remembered the prince's laughter. Humans rushed into danger, the young royal had said. Perhaps that was true. But humans also learned quickly, and sometimes silence was stronger than argument. As the fleet approached cautiously, Elias began planning their next move. unaware that his decision to walk away from the Grand Hall would soon change how the entire galaxy viewed humanity forever. Commander Elias Ward stood on the command deck as the human fleet drifted slowly, near the edge of the anomaly zone. Outside the wide observation window, space looked calm, but the sensor displays told a different story. Waves of strange energy moved through the region like invisible tides. Small flashes appeared and vanished without warning, and broken pieces of ships floated silently in the distance. The fleet maintained low power output as ordered. Human ships were built to survive long missions, and their systems allowed them to operate quietly without drawing too much attention. Engineers monitored every reading carefully, while science teams compared incoming data with old records. Elias watched without speaking for a long time. He had learned that patience was often more powerful than speed. While other species preferred to arrive with overwhelming force, humans often began with observation. They listened to space before acting. "Long-range scan complete," one officer said. "The structure is moving slowly toward the inner star system. No sign of active communication signals." Elias nodded. "Maintain distance. Send probes." Small drones launched from the fleet, moving forward like scattered sparks. Each probe carried sensors designed to measure energy flow, gravitational pull, and radiation levels. As the drones approached, the ancient structure began to react. Sections of its surface shifted, forming geometric patterns that rotated slowly. Streams of energy moved along its outer layers like flowing rivers of light. "Energy spike detected," another officer reported. Elias leaned forward slightly. "Record everything." One probe moved too close. A narrow beam of pale light extended from the structure, touching the drone. For a brief moment, nothing happened, and then the probe simply vanished. No explosion, no debris, just absence. The room fell silent. "That explains the missing ships," someone whispered. Elias felt the weight of responsibility settle on him. This was not a simple investigation anymore. It was a threat. He opened a communication channel to Earth Command. "We have confirmation," he said calmly. "Artificial construct, highly adaptive, unknown origin. Request authorization for active containment." The reply came quickly. "Authorization granted. Proceed with caution." Elias ended the transmission and turned back to the crew. "We learn first," he said. "No unnecessary risks." The fleet began testing the construct carefully. They sent decoy signals and watched how it responded. They altered energy output levels and measured changes in its behavior. Every action was calculated. Slowly, a pattern began to appear. The construct moved towards stronger energy sources. It ignored smaller objects unless they came too close. Its reactions were precise, almost mechanical. Hours passed as data accumulated. Meanwhile, back at the Solistari capital, concern spread across the council chambers. Reports from the frontier continued to arrive, and none of them were encouraging. Several trade routes had been abandoned. Merchant guilds demanded protection. Prince Kaler listened quietly as advisors debated strategy. Confidence had begun to fade from his expression. "Where is the human fleet?" one council member asked. "They departed without formal coordination," another replied. Kaler felt a small flicker of irritation. Humans often acted independently, which he considered reckless, yet another part of him felt uneasy. He remembered the calm way Elias had left the hall. No anger, no defense, just silence. A message arrived from a distant monitoring station. The human fleet had engaged the anomaly. Kaler ordered the report displayed immediately. On the screen, human ships moved in irregular formations around the massive construct. They avoided direct confrontation, instead circling slowly while launching small objects toward it. "They are testing it," an advisor said. The prince watched closely. He expected to see dramatic attacks or sudden failure. Instead, he saw patience. Back at the frontier, Elias studied new data. "It adapts to energy signatures," he said. "High output makes us targets." "Then we reduce energy use," a pilot suggested. Elias nodded. "Shift to physical defense systems. Reduce shields to minimum." The order surprised some crew members. Most advanced species relied heavily on energy shields, but humans often combined old and new technology. As energy levels dropped, the construct's focus shifted away from the fleet. "It's losing interest," an officer reported. "Good," Elias said. "Now we observe its core." They launched specialized drones designed to survive brief exposure. These probes carried reinforced shells and simple mechanical systems that did not emit strong energy signals. One probe managed to reach a closer position before being destroyed, but not before transmitting critical data. A weak point appeared within the structure's rotating layers. Elias studied the image carefully. It protects itself against energy weapons, he said slowly, but maybe not against mass. He ordered engineers to prepare kinetic impact devices, dense projectiles accelerated using magnetic launch systems. Such weapons were considered old-fashioned by many advanced civilizations, but humans had never abandoned them completely. Preparation took time. During that period, the construct drifted closer to inhabited space. The risk increased with every hour. Solistari fleets arrived at the edge of the system, their ships shining brightly with powerful shields. They formed elegant defensive lines, ready for battle. Prince Kaler watched from the flagship as his commanders prepared for engagement. "Why are the humans operating at such low energy levels?" one officer asked. "They lack proper refinement," another replied. Kaler remained silent, studying the tactical display. The Solistari fleet advanced confidently. The construct reacted immediately. Energy beams struck the leading cruisers, overwhelming their shields faster than expected. One vessel lost power and drifted away. Another retreated under heavy strain. Shock spread across the command deck. "It's targeting our energy output," an analyst said urgently. Before the fleet could adjust, the human ships moved. Instead of forming a unified line, they scattered in unpredictable paths. Several launched decoy reactors, small devices emitting strong energy signals. The construct turned toward the decoys. "Now," Elias said quietly, human ships fired kinetic rounds. Invisible projectiles crossed the distance at extreme speed, striking exposed sections of the structure. Small fragments broke away. "It's working," an officer said. The battle continued carefully. Humans avoided direct confrontation, relying on misdirection and timing. Each attack was based on data gathered during hours of observation. Prince Kaler watched in disbelief. He had expected chaos. Instead, he saw discipline. Human ships lost drones and equipment, but each loss created new understanding. They adapted constantly, changing tactics every few minutes. The construct began to slow. Large cracks appeared across its surface as kinetic impacts struck its rotating layers. Without strong energy signatures to guide it, its responses became less precise. "Human commander is requesting coordination," a communication officer said. Kaler hesitated before answering. "Open channel." Elias appeared on the screen, calm and focused. "We've identified its targeting pattern," he explained briefly. "Reduce energy output and follow our trajectory markers." The prince felt a moment of pride resist the suggestion, but reality left little choice. "Do it," he ordered. Solistari ships dimmed their shields slightly and followed the human guidance. The construct's attacks became less effective. Together, the fleets executed the final maneuver. Decoys drew the construct's attention while human ships delivered concentrated kinetic strikes to its core. A deep vibration passed through space as the ancient structure fractured. Light faded from its surface. The construct went still. Silence returned to the system. Cheers rose from human vessels, but they were brief and controlled. Crew members returned to work immediately, scanning for remaining threats. Prince Kaler stood quietly on his bridge. The species he had mocked had just saved his fleet, and they had done it without speeches, without demands for recognition. Human ships began turning away, preparing to leave. "They are departing," an officer said. Kaler watched them go, a strange feeling growing inside him. For the first time, he understood that strength did not always appear as brilliance or beauty. Sometimes it looked like quiet determination. And sometimes the loudest message was delivered without a single word. The human fleet drifted quietly away from the shattered remains of the ancient construct, leaving fragments of its enormous hull floating silently against the black of space. The crew moved efficiently, checking systems, gathering data, and preparing to report back to Earth Command. There was no celebration. There were no speeches. Humanity's way was always calm, methodical, and focused on results rather than recognition. Commander Elias Ward stood on the bridge of his flagship, his eyes scanning the starfield ahead. Every ship in his fleet followed protocols he had designed over years of experience. His calm demeanor did not come from fearlessness, but from a deep understanding of responsibility. Every life aboard his ships mattered, and every choice could determine the fate of thousands. He reviewed the data collected during the encounter. The construct had been ancient, built by a civilization that had disappeared eons ago, but it was intelligent, adaptive, and lethal. It had destroyed Silistari vessels in minutes. Yet the human fleet had approached with caution, learning before acting. They had observed patterns, tested responses, and used minimal losses to gather the information needed to neutralize the threat. This approach was exactly why humanity survived in the galaxy, despite being smaller, slower, or physically weaker than many advanced species. While some relied on tradition, ceremony, or overwhelming power, humans relied on adaptability, observation, and problem-solving. It was a strategy that had repeatedly turned underestimation into advantage. As Elias examined the data, he noticed a familiar energy signature on his display. It came from the Silistari flagship, the one commanded by Prince Kaler. The young royal's ship was hovering near the outskirts of the system, watching the human fleet as it prepared to depart. Elias had expected this. The prince had been present during the first insult, and now he would need to witness the results for himself. He activated a secure communication channel. "Ward to Prince Kaler," he said calmly. "Are you prepared for a formal debrief?" A moment passed, then Kaler's face appeared on the screen. He looked different than he had during the summit, less confident, less polished, but more attentive. The arrogance he had displayed in the grand hall had vanished, replaced by a mixture of curiosity, caution, and respect. "I am ready," Kaler said quietly, his luminous skin glowing faintly with an uncharacteristic pallor. Elias nodded. "We neutralized the threat. Your fleet is intact. All remaining Silistari ships are safe." Kaler's eyes widened slightly. "You did this without a large fleet formation, without energy shields at full power." Elias' expression remained calm. "Yes, the construct targets high-energy signatures. Your ships were excellent targets, but the threat could be contained with smaller, adaptive maneuvers. We observed, we learned, and we acted with precision. Our method minimized loss while ensuring the outcome." Kaler's mouth moved slightly as if he wanted to say more, but no words came. For the first time, he felt a sensation he had rarely experienced: humility in the presence of another species' capability. "You left the summit without responding to my words," Kaler said finally. His tone was not confrontational, but quiet, almost reflective. "You could have argued, defended your species, yet you walked away. Why?" Elias considered the question. He did not need to explain everything. Humanity's actions had already spoken, but a brief answer was necessary. "Because words would not have changed your opinion," he said simply. "Experience is stronger than argument." Silence filled the channel. Kaler's expression was unreadable, yet his glowing skin shifted subtly, reflecting a deep internal processing that was almost like thought made visible. "Your people," Kaler began slowly, "they do not seek praise, they do not boast of their victories. And yet they act decisively when it matters most." Elias inclined his head. "Humanity measures results, not applause. Recognition is secondary. Action is primary." Kaler's luminous skin dimmed slightly. "I underestimated your species," he admitted. "I thought humans were impulsive and reckless. I mocked them publicly. I did not see the depth of their patience nor their understanding of risk. Nor did I consider their ability to act decisively when the moment required it." Elias nodded. "Many have underestimated humans. Often the outcome teaches the lesson more effectively than any argument could." The prince remained silent for a moment. Around him, the Silistari flagship hummed quietly, lights reflecting off the polished walls. For the first time, Kaler felt as if he were standing on equal ground with another species, not as a superior, but as a witness to competence. "I will not forget this," Kaler said finally. "Nor will I dismiss humanity again. You have earned respect, Commander Ward." Quietly, without fanfare, without prideful claims, "You have shown the galaxy a standard that many others lack." Elias remained calm. "We do what is necessary, nothing more, nothing less." The conversation ended shortly after, but its effects rippled across the Silistari Empire. Reports of humanity's actions spread quickly. News of the quiet, decisive neutralization of the ancient construct amazed many. Even those who had previously doubted the species began reconsidering their assumptions. Back aboard the human fleet, preparation for the return journey was underway. The crew worked efficiently, checking systems and collecting fragments of the construct for research. Elias walked through the ship quietly, observing every officer and engineer. He knew the importance of morale. Humanity's strength relied not only on technology but on disciplined, capable people who could act without panic, even in the face of deadly unknowns. Among the crew, there was a sense of quiet accomplishment. No one celebrated excessively. This was expected. Humans rarely allowed success to distract from responsibility. Lessons had been learned. Knowledge had been gained. The galaxy had been made safer. As the fleet engaged hyperspace and departed the frontier system, Elias reflected on the encounter. The construct had been ancient, adaptive, and dangerous. Yet it had also revealed a crucial truth. Humans thrived in situations others considered hopeless. Their resilience, patience, and capacity to adapt made them formidable, not because they were the strongest, but because they learned faster, acted smarter, and never gave up. Days later, the fleet approached the Solistari capital. The stars stretched across space like glittering rivers, and the shattered fragments of the construct remained behind, floating silently as a reminder of the battle. When the fleet arrived in orbit, the Galactic Council requested an audience. Prince Kaler stood before the chamber, his expression serious but respectful. The hall was quiet as the human commander entered. This time there was no arrogance, no mockery, only observation, only recognition. Kaler stepped down from the elevated platform, a gesture that startled the audience. For the first time, a member of the Solistari royal family approached another species without asserting superiority. He met Elias' gaze directly. "I misjudged humanity," Kaler said openly. "I mocked your species, I assumed recklessness, I was wrong. You have shown patience, skill, and resolve. You did not speak loudly, yet you acted decisively. That is strength beyond pride or ceremony." Elias listened quietly. "We do not measure ourselves by perception," he said. "We measure ourselves by responsibility and results." The chamber was silent. Other species present exchanged glances, some nodding, some whispering quietly. Many realized that humanity's quiet determination had set a standard unlike anything they had witnessed. Kaler continued, "I apologize for underestimating you, and I acknowledge the courage and skill that your people have demonstrated. Humanity is no longer to be regarded as merely unpredictable newcomers. You are leaders in action, even if silent in words." Elias inclined his head. "Your acknowledgement is noted. What matters more is future cooperation. We act to ensure the safety and stability of all systems, not for accolades." The prince's luminous skin glowed softly, a sign of deep contemplation. "I will not forget these lessons," he said, "and I will not dismiss your species again. Perhaps, in time, I will learn more from humanity than I could have imagined." Outside the chamber, word spread quickly. Reports of humans' decisive action, combined with their calm approach to crisis, altered perceptions across countless species. Humanity was no longer seen as reckless, chaotic, or immature. They were seen as resilient, intelligent, and dependable. Their patience and careful observation had allowed them to accomplish what many thought impossible. Elias returned to his fleet after the audience. The crew prepared for departure, returning to their home system. Earth Command awaited full reports, but there was no celebration. Lessons had been learned and knowledge gained. Humanity's reputation had grown silently, not through showy displays, but through quiet strength and action. As the fleet entered hyperspace, Elias looked out into the vast stretches of stars. Every challenge ahead would be met with the same combination of observation, patience, and adaptability. He knew there would be more anomalies, more threats, and more species who doubted humanity's abilities. But he also knew one fundamental truth: humans did not need recognition to act correctly. They did not need applause to succeed. They only needed clarity, purpose, and the courage to act when it mattered. Back at the Solistari Empire, Prince Kaler observed reports from the frontier. He no longer mocked humanity. Instead, he studied them. He watched their methods, their efficiency, and their discipline. He realized that while humans might appear unremarkable at first, their quiet persistence made them more dangerous and capable than many would ever expect. The Galactic Summit, once a place of hierarchy and display, had taught an enduring lesson. Strength was not always measured by status, beauty, or power. Sometimes it was measured by the ability to act, adapt, and persevere quietly in the face of danger. Humans had done exactly that, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. As Elias' fleet continued its journey home, each officer and crew member carried with them the knowledge that they had done what was necessary, not for glory, not for recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. And somewhere in a hall of living crystal, a young alien prince learned what it truly meant to respect another species, not for words, not for ceremony, but for results. The galaxy had changed, and humanity's place within it had been quietly, decisively established.